I'm now the #1 pest controller in the whole of New Zealand after I killed a possum and it half killed my car, which I have half fixed, so it quarter killed.
How do you half fix a car?
Well, first of all, it wasn't my car. I was borrowing a car because my car broke. So I was borrowing my uncle's car, which he just gave a full service, new oils and everything. It got a birthday, new tires, new wheels, everything. And then I hit a possum. I swerved. The possum's name was Jeremy. I swerved to avoid Jeremy, and he was walking. He's walking to the side of the road. He's like sort of right of center. I started to avoid him into oncoming traffic, and Jeremy, the bastard he is, turns around, and walks in front of the car. And I couldn't swerve any further. If I swerved the other way, I just would have hit him on the other side of the car. So I clipped him on the corner of the car. He goes under, which is the plastic scraping. And then I pull over. There's coolant coming out the car. And I call my mates.
He really did a number on you, didn't he?
Well, he didn't. I call my mates in town like, hey, is anyone sober enough to drive me? Nope. They were so drunk that they were giving me advice on cars. And I was like, I don't need this. I just need to know that if I can't make it home, I have someone who can pick me up, which I didn't. So I drove it back to Queenstown town, and we put some more coolant in it to get it home because they're in town. So that was an experience. And then I spent all Saturday in Queenstown, half the day, fixing a car when I was in Queenstown, and should have been enjoying Queenstown, but it wasn't the best weather. So the car is half fixed because it pulled like this pipe thing out of a thing that the thing was. It wasn't like it was like a plastic thing. Anyway, I RTV'd siliconed it back in, and so now we're only dripping, not pouring.
How good.
So we got that drip.
Gutting for Jeremy though.
Well, Jeremy, I should have gone back and gotten Jeremy and put him on the wall so I could channel all my hatred into Jeremy, whom I hate. He is now was my arch nemesis for about 3 seconds between when the car hit him, probably half a second, and he died. I won.
Well done. You usually do. Always
Conquer
win.
all my enemies.
Always got to win.
You got to have an interesting story. What have you been up to this week?
Very little. Very.
Thanks, Harrison.
Run of the mill. I don't go around and kill possums with my car. I've got to be completely honest.
You don't going around and killing possums?
I don't go around and kill possums with my car.
Well, I don't intend to, but I do now. So
okay. You one up me there.
Yeah.
No, I don't really do.
Do you want to get into the
Let's get into
stories?
some policy, shall we?
Oh.
Tyler's favourite. Okay, we'll start with KiwiSaver. So there was a news story this week that Kiwis are raiding their KiwiSavers at rapid rates. 244 million in 1 month has been withdrawn from KiwiSavers in June of 2026. Most of it for first-time buyers, but a increasing amount for financial hardship. What are we looking at? Yeah, most people withdrew. More people withdrew for financial hardship, I should actually say. Just over 5,000 people. Then 4,300 for a first home. This is not great for KiwiSaver, is it?
No, not at all. It's people are doing it tough, and the government's trying, or all parties are trying to lock your KiwiSaver away. So you have to put more of your money into KiwiSaver. Like most parties are looking at about 6%. National's
got their policy. Opportunity's got theirs. I don't know if any others have got a KiwiSaver policy yet.
NZ First does. I don't remember the exact policy. No. But they all want you to put more money into KiwiSaver because we can't afford to pay for retirees as much. So in future, we can lower the pension and you can have more money yourself, which, as we covered in our interview with Daniel Ebb, is essentially making us, our generation, pay for retirement twice. So we pay for ourselves to retire through our KiwiSaver, and we also pay for our grandparents and parents to retire through the pension. So that's fair, I guess. Yeah.
It's a lot of, but at the moment, if you're withdrawing it, it's short-term trade-off of short-term, just filling the gap, filling the need, compared to that long-term beauty of compounding interest.
Well, the issue is, if Kiwis are withdrawing, you've had 4,370 people. Sorry, that's first home.
That's first home.
You've had 5,130 people-ish pull out money for hardship. And so you're wanting to lock away an extra 3% into that KiwiSaver, and furthermore restrict what they can withdraw from that KiwiSaver, and they're already having to withdraw money for hardship. I mean, adding an extra 3%, removing an extra 3% of someone's income is going to push more people into hardship and make it more inaccessible for them to get that money out, which is theirs. And it's not really an argument over whether KiwiSaver is a good or a bad idea. It's an argument over how much the government can force you to lock away your own money and not be able to get it when you need it. I mean, 3% seems fair enough, but forcing people to lock away 6% is quite extreme, given that how much we're still paying for the older generation.
Yep.
If pensions were small right now and we weren't, it's fine. But having to mandatory lock away 6% of your income and then pay for your grandparents, the older generations retiring at the same time, knowing full well that you won't get that same service when you retire, is quite harsh.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow for sure, and it's not exactly a comfortable pill either.
Well, our generation's just being screwed over from every side.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shoot, we've got a real problem. Should we put it on the voters now, or put it on some of the voters, the young ones, and younger people who can't vote yet? And the politicians obviously decide, well, if I make the voters, the retirees, many of whom own enormous amount of property. Now, I say many of whom. Most retirees who own more than one property own maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. But there are some who own like
the retirees at least would own their one home.
Yeah.
That
whereas
they bought
we can't even afford
nothing 30, 40 years ago, and now is worth 10 times, 15 times what they bought for it conservatively.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We actually have had house prices drop slightly. We've had talking like not even half a percent, like 0.1% or so. So
yeah, you compare that to 30 years ago, they're up astronomically.
Yeah, exactly. I had a family friend who's very he was trying to argue to me, if we want the country to do well, we need to maintain the status quo, which I found like it's just ridiculous.
Working.
I've never heard someone argue for the status quo before. The status quo.
Not directly.
No, like I've heard people argue for, obviously we need radical change. I'm thinking maybe that's what we need. I don't know. We need something just depending on what your definition of radical is.
Yeah.
There are people who say, we need to go harder on national policies or Labour-esque policies. But to say we just need to keep things exactly as they are and continue was crazy.
And it's going great.
He sent me a news story saying that the status quo is working, and it was, I'll find it. It was on house prices. But do you want to talk a bit more about this KiwiSaver? Just finish that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, like we were saying, there's parties that are coming out and making this such an issue and making KiwiSaver such a big deal. The fact that you are slowly, systematically being forced to lock away. The only way that they can justify locking away this 6% is if they increase wage growth at such a higher rate. If they increase, we were just reading the other day that retail wages have only gone up 1% this year, whereas inflation's up 4%. So wages need to outstrip inflation in order to make the proposed KiwiSaver policies of increasing up to 6% and making it compulsory. So they want compulsory KiwiSaver at a higher rate than what it is, whilst not necessarily focusing on increasing wage growth, because you need... People don't have enough disposable income as is. If you're locking more of that away as things are going to get more expensive and you're not increasing wages at the same rate, it's completely unsustainable, and just people are going to withdraw more on hardship.
Exactly. And so I've got the story here. Marked improvement. Quote that. Quote, marked improvement in housing affordability. From a company called Cotality.
Cotality, yeah.
Published in One News. And they say, so the typical time required to save a 20% deposit has eased to 8.9 years, slightly below 9 years.
Just below.
So
8 years,
the marked
11 months?
improvement. The marked improvement is you'll be able to pay it off by mid-October instead of the end of the year.
Yeah.
Which, it's kind of nice for Christmas if you get a home loan exactly at New Year's Day, but otherwise it's ridiculous. The national value to income ratio of a home is now 6.7 times. So if you did spend your income on absolutely nothing, saved every dollar you spent, didn't pay for food or anything, you just had your income, it would take 6.7 years to buy the average priced house, which is down from the peak of 9.8%, sorry, 9.8, so 9.8 times the income in 2021. So COVID, when people aren't selling.
That is a decent drop.
No, but we had a spike in COVID
Yeah.
because everyone was trying to buy a house because or camper vans or anything because they weren't going on trips overseas.
Yeah.
So that's a ridiculous comparison. So what else have we got? Mortgage payments. Mortgage payment is now 40% of income, below its long-term average of 42. I mean, you get the point, right? And this is down from 54 during COVID again. So the point being, this article is just an absolute nothing burger. Auckland's value to income fell to 7.2 from 7.5. Wellington's fell from 5.5 below the historical average of 6.2. That's actually good from Wellington. That's actually all right. 0.7 years is all right. But it's nothing. Dunedin is now 6.1 compared to its long-term average of 5.7. So Dunedin's
Gone up. Great.
It's just a nothing burger story again because it's still so expensive, and how you want to.
Yeah, you've come down from extortionately expensive to decently expensive. Like it's such a small step down.
Well, the nationwide average has reduced 0.1 years, and they've marked it as a large change in this news story. It's ridiculous, and moving on.
Things aren't getting cheaper. Rents either.
Nope.
No. This was a big. We were at the OUSA debate 2 weeks ago now, and this was a big topic of debate. Was that rents keep coming down? But the Aotearoa Renters Survey in 2026, a renters advocacy group did their annual survey, or first big review of its kind in 10 years, and they found that 50% of respondents are spending over half their income on rent now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, obviously, it's who responds, and people who respond are going to be worse off because it's a bigger issue for you. If it's not a bigger issue, you're probably not going to focus on that issue.
Yeah, it's skewed slightly, yes.
It's definitely skewed, as are the reports from the contrarians. But at the end of the day, it's you pay enormously for rent compared to what you used to. And that's the story, right? All our costs in life are increasing. And when people say, oh, you guys have it so, your generation has it so good, because you've got social media, you've got cheap things from China, it's do we really have it better? Is life better now that we have far less expendable income, but we can spend it on, fast fashion, we can spend it on crap? Or was your life better 10 years ago? Was your life better 20 years ago when you could afford to have a family?
When you had disposable income that could be spent on decent quality stuff, not fast fashion, not this. You can invest into communities, you can invest into your family, into people around you, not just being so self-focused on survival. I mean, that's probably. I don't think it's fair to say. I don't think it's unfair to say that's why our social fabric has completely fallen apart. It's because people have become so self-focused on survival for valid reasons, but because they're so focused on survival that now they have no choice but to not invest in community. Don't you think?
Well, that's definitely one of the elements. I mean, you've got both parents working all the time until retirement now. So that definitely removes the ability to have people in the community organising communal events like you used to. That's not to say any gender-specific role should. It's just to say that you can't have community events if you have no one with free time to organise it, except retirees who are notoriously... for sure. I think it's a rough one. It's a rough one.
And I mean, yeah, the things aren't getting cheaper either. Groceries aren't getting cheaper.
Well, here's my comment on. So we had an argument in class the other day about abundance and about authority, and it was this weird argument that I didn't think made the most sense, but it's some guy's theory that you can either have a society that lives in abundance with authority, authority without with scarcity, scarcity with abundance, scarcity with no authority, or scarcity, you know, those two.
The four grids.
Yeah. Which was, I thought, a little bit silly. Because it totally missed the point that you can make someone think they live in abundance without actually living in abundance, which is the story of A Brave New World. If you read that book, you should. I'll give it to you. But you can make someone think they're living in abundance without fast fashion. You have 50 different shirts, but no house.
Yep.
You know, you can make someone feel like they can have everything they ever want, whilst just never advertising what people may truly want, or what may truly community. You know, you can get rid of community and replace it with fast fashion or whatever. I mean, I'm just naming fast fashion as one example of.
It's an easy example.
But I mean, you've got fast food. You've got, I mean, everything's becoming about convenience at the expense of quality of life. But life, I feel like, is so much less convenient now that you don't have community. It's a dangerous time. I mean, parents' interaction, the time that an average parent interacts with their kid is decreasing as well now. I find that concerning personally, because parents can't afford to spend time with their kids because they need to work. So mothers and fathers are putting their kids into institutions, into primary schools, after school care. I got put in very young into after school care.
Same.
Very young, before I turned one. But that's what you have to do for parents to afford to survive. And so, yeah, I would agree with you that that's definitely one. And it's not just to survive, but it's to, I mean, every parent wants to see their kid do well. And so you have that trade-off. Some parents choose to spend more time with their family than they do earning money. And some parents think that would rather prioritize earning money so that their children can afford to have the life they can give them in the future. And so there's that trade-off with a family that's a really shitty trade-off, that you either get to spend time with your kids so that they can, you know, have material means in future, or you get to spend time with your kids at the potential expense of giving them the material means in future. And the people who can afford both are a very wealthy minority. I mean, you meet the average, like, I guess, upper middle class person. They don't spend time with their kids because they're always running a business, whatever. You meet actual upper class people, and they're on holiday around the world all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that's a horrible. Like, that's nice that they get to spend time with their family, but they can only afford it because they have so much wealth.
Yeah.
When really
wealth buys time.
Yeah. Once you get to a certain threshold, then it
starts buying time.
It sort of reverses, sort of like a bell curve. But it's not. I'm not the kind of person to attack wealthy people all the time. I think it's kind of natural to have some people with more means than others. But I mean, you're talking about the mega wealthy that you go, something's wrong there. And when society is sacrificed for the wealth of the few, or community is sacrificed for the wealth of the few, there's an issue there. It's not a tall poppy syndrome thing. It's just you want the society to prosper, not so much the individual. Or when I say not so much the individual, I mean you. I think it's, you know, part of our culture to prioritize the community over the self.
When society is prospering, aren't all individuals within prospering?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I personally think you prosper more when you have a healthy community than you do when you have a healthy bank account.
Yeah.
But that's seemingly, and I think obviously a lot of media impacts that, but that's seemingly becoming a very unpopular opinion. But we'll jump into what's going on with power bills.
What is going on with power bills, Tyler?
Well, I mean, it's just the same story. So groceries are going down. Not going down. They're going up at a lower rate.
Just pushing back on that. There was an article this morning in Stuff about beef mince, the cheap cut of mince, the cheap meat, and it's up 30% in 2.5 years. The average retail price of mince is now $24.40 a kilo.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So it's not going down.
Well, it's not that it's going down; it's that it's going up at a lower percent. So people are saying this is saying fruit and veg has fallen. So this is being displayed as a popular story. So stats. This is from Statistics New Zealand on the selected price
the
indexes.
Government agency.
Yes, but I would stress that it's government in the sense that it's an institutional, bureaucratic organisation. There is very little sway by
But it's still it's
government
independent of
they've found
partisanship, but it's still government.
Annual food prices have risen just 1.9%. Inflation was 4.1, I think. The smallest increase since December 24. Groceries were up 1.6 in total, but fruit and veg actually fell 1%. Which sounds like it's a little increase, but that's it's a little increase for 1 year when everything's gone up so much over time. Like it's good that it's not outstripping. Obviously, that's a positive thing, but it's not groundbreaking news like it's being framed as. But the catch is that electricity, the cost of energy, is going up immensely. So electricity is up 9.5% and gas is up 10.9% over the year. Furthermore, at the petrol pump, petrol's falling itself. So, but that's going to change.
From the month.
Over the month, petrol's down 5.7 and diesel's down 12.1. That's going to go up with whatever Trump does in Iran.
It's drastically up over the year, but that's just susceptible to global pressures.
Well, that's Trump's war in Iran, so that's not even worth talking about in this issue. But the point being, energy is becoming extremely expensive. I'd like to frame it that way over gas. If it's electricity, gas is going up. It's energy. And
it's becoming an election issue.
Well, the thing with cheap energy is there are many studies that show cheap energy is the most efficient way to reduce poverty. When energy is cheap, when the cost to heat your home, cook your food, everything is cheap, it's more affordable to live for the people on the lowest income. It reduces
it makes sense as well.
Energy expenditure, which therefore reduces additional income, which they can then reinvest into themselves, into maybe potentially business, whatever. And it allows a society to prosper. The problem in New Zealand is since maybe Muldoon, like since the hydro schemes, we haven't had a big push on electricity. And now is when we need it more than ever. Because as we spoke about in the last episode, the government, led by National and ACT on this issue, are wanting and allowing data centres to just be implemented to quite an extreme extent, in my opinion, the extreme extent being that they haven't implemented specific regulations on it. So they are, data centers are operating under the RMA, under laws that have existed before AI data centers were ever conceived, which is obviously a fairly recent conception. So you would think when you have such a resource-intensive, compared to the jobs it produces industry, and energy-intensive industry, you would implement more regulation. But furthermore, if you want energy-intensive industry, then you need energy, because if you're not intensive with your energy production, well, that price is put on us. If you want to run data centers, which consume enormous amounts of electricity in the United States and other countries, they are buying the whole lot of power from nuclear power stations, the most efficient producer of energy in the world, just to run their data centers. And we have hydro, we have our gas, our geothermal, which we use to heat our homes, and now that's going to have dual usage. I mean, it's the same power grid, but when you add a massive consumer, I believe the one in Southland was close to the size of Hamilton. I may have that wrong, but the amount of energy it will consume is like adding another Hamilton into the grid. That's insane, and you need more cheap power. And I personally don't see how that's going to come from wind and solar.
Basic economics tells you if demand increases and supply doesn't increase, price goes up a lot. Correct?
Yes. So wind and solar may be great for solving issues had we kept building towns, but the immediate jump, I mean, adding towns, power usage expands when the town does. You add a data center and it's boom, 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 up. I mean, there's a reason it's built on the Tiwai Point main power lines, is that when Tiwai, our current largest producer, Google how much of New Zealand's power Tiwai Point aluminium smelter consumes, but our biggest use of power in the country is when they want Tiwai to shut down and to run data centers instead. It consumes what percent?
13% of the country's electricity supply.
Yeah.
Equivalent to 680,000 homes.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we need an actual plan to provide enormous amounts of power. Or we're just shunning lower New Zealand at the expense of AI data centers, which provide very little jobs in a community. This is a massive amount of resources, a massive amount of electricity, and that's where the jobs really come from AI, is those who work in, electrical engineering, but even that is minimal compared to actual industry. I mean, you have people who work in a data center, you have some service technicians and some cleaners, probably 50 people in this massive building. It's just the trade-off for any community, and actually the trade-off for our country, which is currently currently power scarce, is pretty crap. It's pretty crap. I mean, why would you be in favor of something that's going to make your cost of living so much higher when you're already struggling? I mean, I'll say it because I don't even care, but the big evil, nuclear, seems to be the only way to run.
We need nuclear.
I mean,
I've been years.
I actually think the efficiency of solar is really low, but it's fine to invest in solar, and that's fine for houses. But first of all, I don't like solar farms because they're completely destructive of landscapes. But that's fine investing in homes, and wind turbines are fine. But you need an alternative source of power for when the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining, and you either need massive lithium batteries, which are extremely environmentally destructive and extremely expensive to create. The yield, the efficiency ratio is quite low on that. Or, in most cases, you need an on-demand source of power. So you've seen that where, say, Huntly will be running, but not actually generating power. But when there's a dip in wind or a dip in solar, they kick it in. So we're just burning coal, and not even using the power. But we need to burn it for when it drops. Yep. So we need an on-demand source of electricity. And that's either hydro, but then you get into the issue with dry years, where if it doesn't rain enough, you don't get enough power. If you don't have enough water in the reservoirs and you've got a dry year, then you can't rely on hydro. So what do you rely on? Well, then it's coal, which you get from Indonesia, which uses questionable ethical practices around humans and environment. We don't allow our own mining. We've banned that. It's just a bizarre situation. And you know what? You know what I blame?
Go ahead.
Insincerity.
Expand.
Well, this argument is consistently framed around, do we use coal or do we use solar? Solar's great, wind's great. And it's like, those points are valid, but you need to have the full context. And politicians and the media as well have engineered this issue for clicks, for popularity, and said that these solutions can solve what they're focusing on as a minute problem, but they're being totally insincere. I mean, they told us they would shut down Huntly and remove mining in the country, which sounds like a good idea. Everybody wants in terms of the fact that everybody wants the minimal impact on the environment as possible. So if you say, we'll get rid of mining here, that sounds great. Well, less impacting, we don't need mining, that's great. Well, you need mining because everything's, your iPhone's made out of all these precious metals, and when it comes to coal, they say they'll shut down Huntly Power Plant. They barely did it because they needed that on-demand power, and they were totally insincere about that, about the shortages, and honest, because they knew it would be cheaper for them, election-wise, to advocate on a carbon-neutral policy, which isn't carbon-neutral, and relies on extreme violations of human rights, for starters. I mean, the amount of issues, you just have to be sincere with it. There's no good option. You just have to be sincere about all the options, so as a country, we can move forward in the most honest and what we think is the most productive way. But it's just framed totally wrong, and that's quite frustrating and upsetting. And, I mean, you've seen that happen with pine trees recently, where the carbon credits, they were completely insincere about that. Oh, we'll plant all this forestry that'll absorb carbon. What they did is they encouraged planting of pine trees, which absolutely destroyed our landscape. And I'm really happy to see that some sincerity has come in with the help of lobby groups and individuals going to, like Hyundai Country Calendar was on it first. Rural New Zealand was on it first. Like, look, it's not only what you're doing to farms, but look at this pristine landscape that's being absolutely destroyed by pine trees. And it seems like the only way to get sincerity in New Zealand is through the people, which is kind of what we're trying to do here. though we may not be very good at that. But this is a big problem with all our issues, is they are oversimplified, insincere, and ultimately reap results that our generation will have to pay for. Our generation will have to fix the pine issue, and our generation will have to fix the electricity issue. Electricity will become way too expensive. We'll have no solutions. Maybe we'll build big lithium batteries that absolutely destroy other places of the world, use child labor for the cobalt. I mean, it's just stuff like that's going to happen, but we need to have an honest conversation about what we want to do. And I think around nuclear, that's a completely insincere argument. Australia, the outback, has uranium.
Yep.
You're going to have to sacrifice some places to mine. They already mine in the outback. There's no human right abuses as far as I'm aware. It's our neighbour, so that mining for it's all right. We can build the skill in New Zealand, the advanced technical skill. We would fund our... And I mean, I just think I could go on about this, but it's an element of sincerity. I'm totally for not having nuclear weapons here, obviously. They are demonic devices, but it's just an insincere argument.
Yeah,
and that's my whole rant.
It's an absolute. The New Zealand's political stance is an absolute, whereas actually, if you look into the legislation, there's nothing that blocks nuclear power. There's nothing that blocks. It's nuclear. Well, I had it here. Nuclear explosive devices and nuclear powered ships in internal waters, but it does not explicitly outlaw land-based nuclear power stations. That is the current law.
Yeah,
but it's the perception.
That was the thing, right? So Luxon said, "Oh, we want to look into it," and Chippy, head of the Labour Party, immediately jumped on the populist, try to be populist. We're a nuclear-free country, and it's like, just have the conversation.
Yeah.
But
we can be nuclear. We can be nuclear-free from nuclear-powered submarines and nuclear-armed weapons. Fine. Yeah.
Perfectly
no
fine.
issue with that. I don't think you're going to find any sane person that would disagree with that. But
I don't even need us to have nuclear. I just want the conversation to be allowed. But every time the conversation is allowed, you have these false arguments get presented. And I was really frustrated with the Labour Party for that, as I've been frustrated with the National Party for many things. But I was quite happy that Christopher Luxon said he would like a discussion on it, because we should have discussions. I mean, as a society, we should have discussions on everything. That's how we should come to our conclusions, not based on false rhetoric. And maybe we don't want nuclear. There have been disasters with the old generation reactors. They've been built in... They've been either Chernobyl insufficiently looked after. Not familiar with 3 Mile.
There's 3 notable incidents.
3 Mile, Chernobyl,
Fukushima.
and Fukushima.
But that's it. It's one of the safest, cleanest, lowest...
But, I mean, at the end of the day, we just need to have a discussion on it, on everything. But
it's just a big scare word, and it's just...
Yeah, all right.
All right. You calm down?
Calm down a bit. Flying on with innovation, It's good to see there's still ideas coming out of New Zealand. We're not totally dried up.
No.
Rocket Lab has done amazing stuff. Unfortunately, obviously they've had to go to the America to afford building rockets.
They need the bigger market.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it's Rocket Lab's a good reminder of where New Zealand does punch above its weight.
Yeah, and what we can achieve. I mean, we spend so much of our time we farm sheep and eat kiwi fruit and sit around doing nothing all day, and there's many issues. I mean, road cones are the symbol of our incompetence.
I drove past. I couldn't turn into your street because there was about 20 road cones at the top of your street just blocking everything, to say don't turn here.
So that's the issue, right? I don't want to get into road cones too much, but I had a friend who was visiting, and I asked him. He's from America. What's the first thing you notice in New Zealand? And he thought he's like, what's the first thing I noticed? And he's like, you know what? The first thing I noticed was you just have road cones everywhere. And honestly, I was really embarrassed by that because we joke about it, but for it to be the first thing someone notices, and granted, he landed in New Zealand, in Auckland, and Auckland's Auckland and whatnot, but it's just a sign of the struggle that we have and where we slow ourselves down. But this is a story of where if we don't slow ourselves down, and I'm not saying we should unregulate ourselves, but if we have fair regulations and we encourage ingenuity, Rocket Lab is obviously an amazing, well-known example.
They've got their new Neutron rocket they're getting ready to launch.
Yeah, so
they are running out of time, but
for this year,
it will launch.
It's a next-generation rocket, 4.3 meters tall, methane-fueled, so cow farts, with reusable first stage, designed to carry far heavier payloads and compete with SpaceX. It's just a New Zealand company. As of August 10, Rocket Lab says the first stage tank is on track to reach launch pad in fourth quarter of 2026, so end of the year, but they don't have a window to launch it yet, so it could be launched next year. But, I mean, considering we're the first to compete with...
The Kodiak, where my rocket, the Kodiak rocket launch inspired your guys' rocket launch thing.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go, we've inspired...
Alaska.
We've inspired...
We inspired you guys.
You inspired us?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right.
I can send you the article.
Well, there we go.
It says New Zealand in it. Got real excited.
Not sure. Anyway. So, yeah, I mean, like, space and advanced manufacturing, high-paying tech jobs. And Rocket Lab's done well with keeping jobs in New Zealand as well. I mean, there's no reason that Rocket Lab shouldn't just export its entire business to the United States, other than maybe the New Zealand government might look after it a bit better.
I mean, I used to work in Mount Wellington, where they have one of their hubs, centres, and it was always, they had to park on the road, there was no parking, it was just always a bustling activity of, a centre of activity, there was always stuff going on, people coming in and out constantly, they could have just packed up and moved. Yes, they're launching from America now. But
they launched from Mahia as well.
Yeah. I mean,
this one's not going to be launched.
Their neutron one's launching in Virginia.
Yeah, Wallops Island, Virginia. But they've got 2 launch sites in the States. I think one in Florida and one in Virginia. I may be wrong, as well as Mahia towards Gisborne. But I mean, it's just awesome. And I mean, you know, there's this story which I've put in just to show that we are still doing things. There's a company in Auckland, Scentian Bio, who are putting insect smell receptors onto chips to sniff out diseases in ripening fruit. So computers will be able to, using, I don't know how it works, but obviously there's some synthesizing insect smell receptors and putting it on computer chips, which then can check fruit ripeness and also test for diseases like TB and could be able to use to test for things like TB and cancer on human breath. But I mean, that's just the, you know, unfortunately they're being backed by Bill and Melania Gates Foundation and Toyota Ventures. Not a fan of Bill and Melania Gates Foundation, but we are still doing
there's
groundbreaking
innovation.
things.
It's stuff happening.
Maybe it'll go nowhere, but if it goes somewhere, that's amazing.
This is the country that's, I'd say, I think it's unfair to say, it's some of its first identity was found on the likes of Edmund Hillary.
Yeah.
And that daringness, that innovation, that tackling those big problems.
Yeah.
That's what New Zealand's original identity would say was found on.
And now we've got Poppy syndrome.
Yeah. Which
needs to fuck off.
Yes.
To use that word for the first time this episode, because it's just ridiculous. I mean, we've always soared and cutting down those who dare to achieve. It's like, no, we should all achieve, and we all achieve in our own ways, and we all do remarkable things, as most Kiwis do. Yeah. Whether that's raising a family or climbing a mountain, you know, it's ridiculous. And yeah, it's. I think the hope for our country doesn't come from politics, any side of it. I think it's just the people. And I'm not just talking about Peter Beck, people who shoot rockets into space, which is obviously incredible. But I mean, just you talk to the average Kiwi and how selfless they are and the stuff they do for other people and the stuff they achieve in their own lives and in their own careers and in their own, just, you know, doing what they want to do. It's just daring to endeavour, I guess, to name after the first European ship that came here. It's just amazing, and we need to lean heavier on Kiwis and forget about the politics. We say as we do a politics podcast, but it's the end of the day. We get obsessed with unremarkable people like Christopher Luxon and Christopher Hipkins, and sorry, but most politicians are pretty unremarkable.
Oh yeah,
they do remarkable things. I mean, becoming a prime minister is remarkable, but look at your average Kiwi and how inspiring just your average. I can name off the top of my head so many people who you've never heard of because they're nobodies, but they are everybody's because they are just such inspiring people. We'll move on because I've ranted it. I've already ranted.
You've been on a few today.
Well, I'm just right. I mean, talking about raising families, New Zealand First wants to pay you to make babies.
To procreate.
Once you've made the baby, they'll pay you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Zealand First announced, it's about a few weeks back now, the Kiwi Kids Grant. they would pay $5,000 a year per child for the first 3 years of a child's life. For a family's first, second, and third child, up to $45,000 for the family. Tax-free, paid through the IRD. One parent does have to be a New Zealand citizen, as in line with most of their policy, or especially their voting policy. New Zealand First leader Winston Peters points to New Zealand's birth rate declining from about 52,000 in 2006 to 36,000 last year in 2025. And a fertility rate of 1.53 children per woman, which is well below the known as replacement level of 2.1. Basically, as our society gets older, you need younger workers to come in and replace them and to fill that gap and to fill that productivity gap. And 2.1 kids per woman is that marker.
Yeah, because obviously 2 adults, 2 children, and then the 0.1 makes up for anybody who passes away before having kids, whether that's, whatever that means.
Yeah. But this has been tried elsewhere.
Yeah, so this has been tried in Korea, Japan, because they have notoriously low birth rates. But a big element to that, though, is social. I mean, in those countries, your career, paid employment, is seen as the pinnacle of your life. Like, that's what you focus on. So Japan, for example, introduced a baby bonus. But national births have continued to drop to historic lows because it's a cultural issue. Not everything comes down to just pure finances. And if you have a child, you get some money for it, but you lose your career progression. Japanese men and women just don't see that as worthwhile. And I mean, that's one of the, obviously we're not as heavy of a working culture as Japan.
Yeah.
But I think personally paid employment, and I may not mean this to the means that it comes across, is over prioritized in New Zealand as well. Like, in terms of, not that you shouldn't be in paid employment or working, but in the sense that a lot of what people would frame as what you did in your life, what you achieved, a lot of that now relies on what you did in paid employment. And there are remarkable stories in paid employment, owning a business, innovating, or doing well in, I don't know, Woolworths or something. That's great. But it's there's far more to life. I mean, I look far more fondly upon the family than I do upon the business people, Mm-hmm. And that's not to say everyone has to have a kid, but it's just to say that there's more than just financial reasons for people not having kids. So it's nice to see, because, having a kid is extremely expensive. And with the cost of childcare these days, both parents having to work, it's probably quite a minimal policy. But at the end of the day, at least it's something in the right direction, but we need to, at a lot of things in New Zealand, I believe, look at where we are culturally, look at the positive. There's definitely negative cultural aspects we've lost. There's positive cultural aspects we've lost. So I think we need to look back and we need to look forward, forge something new. The tall poppy's just come in. That's a relatively new thing. I think it's always kind of been there personally, but to the extent it's sort of a new thing. Tweak that. Get back to, I think, admiring the family and these sort of things. And so bring back some of the positive cultural traits we've lost, remove some of the negative ones we've gained, get more positive cultural traits, keep the positive cultural traits we have, like accepting everyone, which we always kind of had, but it's gotten way better, obviously. And just be Kiwis, be ourselves, and be proud of who we are. And not everything's about paid employment, I don't know. I'm trying to say that briefer than I normally would. But, yeah.
Anyway, New Zealand First wants to pay you to have kids. That's the summary of that one.
Which may or may not work.
Hasn't
worked overseas.
There's no way to see until actually you put that into action.
Hasn't worked overseas. $5,000 a year is quite minimal. It's not going to pay for a whole lot. But, they can try it, I guess.
Yeah. Parliament. What's happening in Parliament?
The urgency?
Well, a report came out. An article came out. Urgency is being used at a 17-year high at the moment. More bills are being passed under urgency than any parliament since 2008. So that was John Key's first government.
Yes.
Yep, John Key's first government. essentially, urgency is a process Parliament can invoke to pass bills through bypassing the select committee stage, which often slows down. Select committees where the public and experts get to make recommendations and submissions on bills. So urgency skips all of this. 17.4% of bills in this term's first 940 days, so to the 2nd of July, passed under urgency, which is the highest since 2008. The previous three parliaments ran between 3.1 and 6.1. However, the last Labour government did use urgency at 15.5% in the same window. However, a lot of that was under COVID, was for COVID reasons, COVID-related legislation, where they didn't think they had the time to... Well, they probably didn't, actually. They didn't have the time to sit there and talk for hours and go through select committee, which can take a couple of weeks, months to pass legislation. Leader of the House, Louise Upston, says most urgency is just to avoid this extra sitting hours, and the coalition has, and this is a direct quote, never used urgency for the purpose of skipping scrutiny. But some people come out against it, such as Geoffrey Palmer. Urgency is being used to dodge scrutiny, Geoffrey Palmer says. It's become an instrument of convenience rather than of necessity. So, yeah, and it matters for us, it matters for young people, it matters for you guys, because laws that are passed fast have less public input. We don't get a say in our democracy, we don't get a say in what laws govern us, other than the 3 years we get to vote. There's meant to be checks and balances in democracy. There's meant to be a power check on those legislations. We've seen there's bills that have been stopped at select committee, such as the Treaty Principles Bill. It got such an overwhelming response at the select committee stage that it did get stopped. There's bills that have been changed, such as, I believe, the Conservation Bill. Was that changed at select committee?
Conservation Amendment Bill.
Fisheries.
The Fisheries Reform Bill. The Conservation Amendment Bill and the Fisheries Reform Bill both got adapted at select committee following public outcry.
So that's the beauty of the select committee stage, is it's a way that the government, that the public can demonstrate opposition to a bill at any stage, or at a stage. You don't just get your say once every 3 years, you get your say on every piece of legislation. If they're being passed through under urgency, you don't get that. You don't get your say. You don't get to make your voice heard on a specific issue. You know, you may not care about every issue, but some issues that you will care more deeply about, so you'll offer a submission on it. And yeah, for us, we're the ones that will live longest under these laws. Why don't we get a say in them? It's kind of
argument. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, urgency. There's an argument for and against urgency. Select committees take a long time. If there's an urgent reform, that's why you have urgency. For what's urgent. But at the same time, you've got that 50-50 where, yes, urgency helps with, there's arguments for and against urgency. Urgency may be positive for those bills that you just really need passed, but the government, and so did Labour, would use it for bills that they don't need to put through urgency. But, I mean, first of all, the government's only in power for 3 years, so it's hard to put that many bills through urgency. It's just overall, it's a conflicting policy. But I think the most important thing for our generation is making sure we have a say. Maybe we do need to look at how the select committee works to make it faster, albeit we shouldn't sacrifice our own voice in that. Maybe urgency needs to be slower, and there needs to be still needs to be consultation. At least maybe urgency, you have a little bit more consultation. Whatever, but it's a tricky one. I think, yeah. You can see. I mean, our generation's being left out of. We're not being given a voice in the West. You can see a big uprising against that. Florida just had a Republican primary. It's not really relevant to us, other than the fact that there was a candidate who, said to speak for the young voice. But you can see that.
Fishback?
That's Fishback, yeah, which is a very controversial figure, which I don't seek to justify nor go against. But he received an enormous amount of young votes. And this is why it's interesting for New Zealand. He received an enormous amount of votes from young people, and an enormous amount, whereas the institutional, Trump guy got an enormous amount of votes from the elderly population. Basically, anyone 35 and up trended the older you got to be more Trump, whereas the young people were staunchly looking out for themselves in their mind, voting for Fishback, and Fishback only got 10%. But it's interesting purely through the lens that you can see that there's a rise in people wanting to have a young voice in government. Their government system is different, but same here. We are being pushed out of government in terms of we aren't being considered because we are the lowest voting groups. We need to stick up for ourselves, or we're going to keep being screwed. And urgency is just another means to which they can screw us. Yep. I personally think urgency is good for some things, but at the end of the day, you still need to.
It needs it, but it needs checks and balances on it, like anything in democracy.
To Pāti Māori, do you want to explain?
Yeah, so Te Pāti Māori came out this week. They had their election launch, and being a bit of a election nerd, I thought this was quite interesting. I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought this was really interesting.
I don't like elections. We should just be a dictatorship.
I love elections. I love elections. I think they're great. Anyway, Te Pāti Māori is taking advantage of our electoral system. Under MMP, you get 2 votes. You get your party vote and your candidate vote, your electorate vote. The party vote is usually the one that matters the most. However, Te Pāti Māori has come out and said, don't give us your party vote. Give us your candidate vote in the Māori seats. So there are 7 Māori electorates that they contest. They don't contest general electorates. They just contest the 7 Māori electorates. They currently hold 6 out of 7 out of these seats. They don't hold the southeast Māori electorate that's held by Labour. What? No. Okay. And so Te Pāti Māori has come out and said, don't give us your the pitches in the Māori seats. Give your electorate vote to Te Pāti Māori, but give your party vote to whichever opposition party you like the most, i.e. Labour or Greens. Currently, the Rārere Waititi's logic is that rival candidates are already higher on their party's lists and will get into Parliament anyway, so an electorate vote for them is wasted. And co-leader Debbie Ngarewa-Packer framed it as trusting supporters to choose their own party vote. What this is also doing is it will create what's called an overhang, which means there are more how do I explain this? A party's party vote determines how many seats they get in Parliament. However, the electorate votes means they have to sit in Parliament. So when a party's electoral results outperform a party's party vote, there's an overhang. There's more MPs of that party than what is deserved by the party vote. Te Pāti Māori, I think, got about 2% last time, or 3% in the party vote. So they didn't even cross the 5% threshold of where they would enter Parliament. However, because they got electorate MPs, they got 6 electorate MPs, they entered into Parliament and created an overhang. So our usual 120-seat Parliament became as 124, which creates a whole load of dynamics, whole load of differences in terms of coalition negotiations, government makeup, parliamentary makeup.
Yeah, so if you vote Te Pāti Māori and they win all the Māori electorates, your party vote is kind of wasted. Whereas if you vote strategically and vote for, say, Labour, which is kind of what they're saying, vote Labour, all the Greens, then you increase the left bloc because Te Pāti Māori are guaranteed their electorates. And then if Labour's got a bigger percentage of the seats, they'll get a big percentage of the seats. You get your percentage of the seats, basically, and everything else is added on. We can put it that way.
Yeah.
So if you got, say, 5% of the vote, you got 6 seats. If you got 1% of the vote, you get no seats. So then maybe you get 1 seat. You get one seat. So then all your other seats overhangs are added onto the Parliament, onto the total number. It's also worth saying they don't actually hold all...
They did at the time of the election, but they've fallen apart a little bit.
Theoris, who was for Titai Tonga, which is mainly the South Island bit of Wellington, he left, and then Maramino Kapakingi also left for Titai Tokara. But they both got kicked out.
They got kicked out for going against the party.
The party's fallen apart, basically. Yes, we'll see what happens.
At the time of the election, they won 6 out of the 7 electoral votes, with Labour winning the last one. It is a smart electoral strategy.
Definitely.
It maximizes the left bloc seats. They know their strengths. They know they're not going to win the National Party vote. They know they're not going to do that. It worked at the Tamaki Makaurau by-election for them. However, some people have come against it. Political scientist Lara Greaves warns that it exploits our system. Exploiting the overhang carries real risk in the public's view of legitimacy of our electoral system. And the party is doing it well bruised by the recent expulsion of 2 MPs. So it could backfire. It probably won't. They will probably carry their electorates. They'll at least carry a few of them. They are popular within their base. They're popular in the electoral role. I think I saw the other day that Māori and Australians are registering overseas at record numbers. Something like 70% of them are now registering, which is record high numbers, and they're all registering on the Māori roll. And at a time when Māori seats are becoming such a contentious issue, likes of Winston Peters wants a referendum on abolishing them. I don't even know if he wants a referendum, but he wants to abolish them. It really is an interesting. It's gonna make November 7th a really interesting night to see how that shapes up, how the electoral results shape up compared to the party vote, and what that looks like in terms of an overhang, in terms of parliamentary makeup.
It really also, it's just another thing putting the strain on the Opportunities Party.
Yeah.
Because if the left block's bigger, that's more likely they'll go with the left, which means centre-right voters are more likely to vote in National or New Zealand First, because they don't. I think there are a lot of people there are a lot of centre-right people, I think, who would want opportunity in government with the current coalition, but don't want to risk a left-wing block. And there's also probably there's definitely vice versa. I've met people who don't want National back in, but like opportunity. So, we'll see what happens with opportunity. Honestly, my prediction at the moment, status quo, it will change a lot come election, because there'll be a lot of, there'll be a lot of propaganda pumped out, but there'll be a lot of evil stories. There'll be a lot of big stories and big policies will be that. I think currently we're seeing a left-wing government, because I think opportunity will go with the left. If opportunity don't get into government, I think we'll see a right-wing government. This is one of the biggest political shake-ups since it's the biggest one since NZ First went with Labour, right?
2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was unexpected.
It was expected.
No, it was expected. It was unexpected at surface level.
Unexpected by the voters.
Yeah. Unexpected when you actually understood the.
If you
read Blue Blood, that's a great book that outlines exactly where they went wrong. Great. I think it's Andrea Vance, Blue Blood. It's a very good book. Anyway, quickly, we've got some more policy. I love policy. I know you hate policy, but we're going to talk about policy. National passed a law.
I love policy if they actually were promises, but they're not. They're just bullshit.
Okay,
they're just we might do that. Anyway.
This is one that's been already passed. The Climate Change Response Tort Liability Amendment Bill passed its third reading, 67-53. This was a policy that was a bill that was pushed through by Paul Goldsmith, who we'll get to in a minute because we feel bad for him now. But it stops New Zealanders from suing companies over their greenhouse gas emissions. They can no longer say, I have been harmed by this company's emissions. And it also kills active cases against Fonterra and other emitters that are ongoing at the moment. So usually a bill comes in and it's just for all future things. However, this one has come in and gone, now everything that's currently active and for the future is cancelled. It's no longer legal. Applies to future and current proceedings, ending the case of Northland iwi leader Mike Smith, who had brought cases against Fonterra, Genesis, Z Energy, NZ Steel, Dairy Holdings, and BT Minings. Big emitters get to keep their ETS, emissions trading scheme obligations, but are shielded from private climate damage claims. The Labour Party, Greens, and Pāti Māori all voted against, with Green MP Steve Abel saying the government shut down a case the companies had already lost in court. Not a great look. We won't stick on this too long. We're going to keep...
Yeah, I mean, it's... For me, this isn't a question about whether you support the emissions trading scheme or not. It's just whether you support the justice system.
Yep.
If the justice system has made them pay, then you kind of...
It now questions the independence of the justice system.
Yeah, I don't. You can't. Yeah. I question that. I mean, I think personally, having private individuals suing under the ETS is kind of silly. unless it, like, if you're saying you're polluting the air, which is causing climate change, which is affecting my house, I think that's quite silly. I think those sort of cases should be brought by the government. But again, that depends on how much you support the government. But obviously, if you're polluting and it's causing cancer in my lungs, or it's coming into my backyard, then I think it's fair. Yeah. I don't know. It's just really seems dodgy that the government would cancel that.
Final bit of policy for this week. The Green Party has come out and said they're going to restore the free school lunches fully and expand it. So they want to launch it as it was, permanently fund it, and expand it to another 400 schools, reaching 150,000 more kids a day. Manua Davidson, the co-leader of the Greens, announced this policy as part of a wider Affordable Kai policy package. There's more details on that to come, but this is their flagship idea. This has been a big contentious issue this term, where David Seymour was spearheading the changes in this. It is a good policy. 1 in 5 New Zealand kids live in a food insecure household, so they don't always have enough. The Greens frame school lunches as both a poverty policy and a local jobs policy, which contrasts to the current coalition government's cheaper, more centralised, more targeted model. Any comments?
I have a grander thought about this that I'll probably go into in a different. It's a bit of a sidetrack. I'll go into in a different video, but having I think an interesting element of this is it shows the Greens as the left-wing party, and it shows why alliances formed as a party. Their shift from jobs focused to nanny state focused. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to put a judgment on this policy. I believe in reducing poverty, etc. I haven't looked into this to comment on it, but what I can say is you see consistently from the Greens policies for the state to give you this, the state to give you that. We'll tax people for the state to give you this and that and this and that and that and this. Yeah. And what you don't see is here's how we'll create more jobs. We'll do this to create more. New Zealand First did with the hillside workshops in Dunedin, which have been going quite well. I mean, I like trains, but I mean, you miss that almost, Muldoonist, like, not necessarily Muldoonist, that's more infrastructure, but the old Keynesian job side of things. And I think that's a serious failing for any left-wing party is, they seem to have been, I don't know if the left is the party of the workers anymore. Like, they definitely, and this isn't to say that they are the best party for workers or anything like that, but who they seek to serve. I don't think they seek to serve workers. I think they seek to serve lower income and middle income New Zealand, but not specifically workers, which is what the left was founded on, which was workers. Here's how we'll help workers. The left used to believe you deserve to be rewarded for the work you put in. And I think saying this on this point is unfortunate because I sound like I'm attacking giving lunches to kids in poverty. It's not at all my point. My point just being with the Green Party itself, separate from this policy, the fact that this is their flagship policy and not something like a Ministry of Works, like Alliance, says a lot about their mindset. Because I think if I were a left-wing party, my policy personally would be, here's how we create more jobs. And as a left-wing party, that would be through government-owned industry, Ministry of Works, whatever. They aren't doing that. They're no longer, you deserve to be rewarded for your work, but you deserve to be able to live without work. You deserve to be able to live no matter what. And I'm not saying if that's good or bad. I'm just saying I think, in my opinion, as I can see, it is a shift in the psyche of the left worldwide. And I think that's why you see a lot of workers going to, because I think a lot of people do like to work or want to work. I think that Alliance would have done well to just stick to that point. And they would have done well for the left, and you would have seen, I think, a lot of centre voters shift left had it been about work and not about here's what the state can give you, which inevitably means we need to tax those who do work more, which basically means we're going to punish you more for working so that you can pay for people who don't work. And I'm oversimplifying this argument. I want to go into it more in a different video. But just, if you want to be left-wing, support not only poor people in poverty and poor people or people who are struggling, but support workers specifically as well. Do you want to talk about Paul Goldsmith?
I do. He's been in the news a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's
He's done nothing wrong, but he now holds the most portfolios out of any minister in recent history. He holds 11 portfolios. So, Paul Goldsmith is now the Minister for Arts, Culture and Heritage, the Minister of Defence, the Minister responsible for the GCSB and for the NZSIS, Minister for Justice, Minister for Media and Communications, Minister for Pacific Peoples, Minister for Public Service and Digitising Government, Minister for Space, Minister for Treaty of Waitangi Negotiations, and Minister for Veterans. Whew. He already had a big workload, but following Chris Pank's coup last week and sacking, Paul Goldsmith picked up all of his portfolios. It was not dispersed. Paul Goldsmith is National's Mr. Fix-It.
Well, I mean, it's just there's two elements to this. One, the ministerial bloat. How many ministries we have, I think, is ridiculous. I mean, Minister for Pacific Peoples, I think personally, is silly. I don't think you should have Minister for any ethnic group. I think Minister for Culture should have that as part of their job or whatever. Minister for Digitising Government, so dumb. Every minister should be looking after digitising government. That's just part of life.
It should be part of their own individual responsibility. Yes.
You don't have you got CEO. You don't have deputy for marketing, deputy for this, and then deputy for digitising the company. Like, that's part of your job, as everyone in every ministry is digitising. And digitising itself isn't a goal. It's just efficiency, and efficiency is digitising whilst maintaining security. Then that's part of it. Like,
breathe. Minister for Space,
Minister for GCSB, and Minister for NZSIS, Government Communications Security Bureau, one of our 3 intelligence services. New Zealand Security Intelligence Services, another one. Why don't we just have a Minister for Intelligence? Well, I do get you can have a security argument.
Those ones are always combined. It's not.
So
a direct,
make it one thing.
It's not a direct ministry. It's minister responsible for. So it's not a direct ministry. They are independent intelligence services. Minister for Space should be under Minister for Defence. No. Yes. Okay. I'll just shut up.
There should be no Minister for Space. Minister for Defence manages the space side of things, and then Minister for Industry or whatever manages any industry. What do you need in space? If there's something you need, like security-wise in space, then yes, Minister of Defence, which I guess is the whole point of Minister for Space, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. But also there's elements to that, which... Minister for Veterans, again, you've got your Minister for Defence, you've got your Minister for whatever that one's called. It's just, some of these can be cut down. So I could cut down some of these right away, and especially once you look at others. But at the same time, it's I don't even know because of how bloated our ministries are, but it seems like it's an over-concentration of power.
It's making the ACT policy of cutting down the ministries drastically look quite good right now. Anyway, Paul Goldsmith. Oh, sorry, go. You want to go?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's 2 arguments to that. One, you need a bunch of ministries or ministers so that if you have to get rid of someone like Chris Pink, there's someone who can step right in. But there's a balance. So for a long time, I was quite pro absolute minimal ministers. I mean, the fact that you have 5 ministers responsible for one department, and then they have to do reports every single one, and all this and that seems really inefficient to me. But then I read a book from a prime minister, which said that he was quite pro. He's a right-wing prime minister. He's quite pro. Minimal minister is Bibi Netanyahu's book. He was quite pro. Who I hate. He was quite.
Kept that one. Tried to keep that one quiet.
Yeah. Well, I read it. I wanted to read about it. I could get into that book,
Idol.
But I'm not finished. No. Not an idol. It's a very large propaganda piece, but it was interesting to read. He wanted minimal. There are some things that are kind of interesting. He wanted minimal ministries, did that, and then his ministers walked out on him, and then he had no one who could take over straight away. So that's a fair point from your inspiration there, Harrison, your fellow Judeo-Christian leader.
Thanks. No. Wait, no. What?
Well,
anyway,
you're united by the Judeo-Christian.
No, very different.
You sure?
We'll get onto this off camera. Anyway, if you want a good article about Paul Goldsmith, go onto the spin-off. They made a mock timetable for him. He gets yelled at by Winston Peters for 4 hours one day. It's quite funny, actually. Highly recommend. I had a good chuckle in class reading that. We've had some foreign leaders visit Thailand and Vietnam.
Yeah, we're not going to dive into those, but
not gonna get too much
it's
of it,
showing
just-
a continual move towards working with Southeast Asia, which has been spearheaded in our defence and industry. You can see that with was it NZSIS or GCSB? One of them said that we need to, start integrating with them more when it comes to MFAT as well. I think it was an MFAT report was talking about working with Southeast Asia, which makes total sense. They're close by. We've had 2 leaders. Vietnam has visited, the leader from Vietnam, opened a trade window. Thailand's PM's coming to town, which is, it's positive to see it happening. I actually think we should have a slightly bigger reception for them, maybe.
Well, you look at India's the other week.
I think
Not to that extent, maybe not
it
every
was-
time.
that was a bit problematic, I think.
But yeah, there should be more fun. I mean, but it also
I mean, we
it
need
signals
to-
this government's
we need
intention.
to celebrate relations
Yes.
with other nations, and it's not about glazing the leader. It's about showing that we are open to working with that country. We're committed, and that we see it as a positive thing,
Yep.
and we celebrate their culture and everything. And I think it would be positive to hold some sort of public celebration of New Zealand Thai, New Zealand Vietnamese, because they both make really good food,
Great food.
great food, and are also very popular hotspots. Probably the
My parents went to Vietnam and they loved it.
I must say they're probably the 2 most popular after Australia. Do you think?
Like I said,
Maybe Bali.
My parents they did 10 days in Vietnam and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, tourism there
Well,
is
it's
quite
great.
large. I mean, yeah, I would be nice to. It'd be nice to celebrate, especially in a world where we're so polarized, etc., etc. And not another rant, Tyler. South Island, local councils, fun thing to finish on. So fun. Ngāi Tahu, them, the big tribe in the South Island, have actually come up with their own council plan. They weren't asked to, but they did. And I think it's a fair point, so I think it's worth mentioning that the tribe has come up with a reasonable plan in most ways. So they were saying shrink the 78 councils to fewer than 40.
So that's the New Zealand government's directive. So the,
Oh, sorry,
the
sorry.
central government has come out and said
Sorry.
you need to shrink the councils down from 78. It's 78 councils
Sorry.
at the moment.
Yes.
Bring it down to 40.
Ngāi Tahu wants to shrink the South Island's 24. Now, this is not true. They want to shrink the 24 in their part of the South Island. So this is excluding the
top
northern
bit.
part of the South Island, which is under Ngāi Tahu. They want it to be basically on their borders. They don't explicitly say that, but shrink the 24 councils to 5, being Southland, Otago, or is it Otago and Southland? West Coast, Canterbury, South Canterbury, Otago, and Southland. That's right, Harrison. And then they say that, so replace it with 5 drawn around major river catchments. That makes sense. And then have a ton of little local boards. That just seems like, we're not going to get into it too much, but it just seems like a pretty sensible idea. So Otago would manage the rivers, I think including Waitaki. Maybe not. But from Clutha, Queenstown Lakes, Wanaka down to Otago, Southland manages all the rivers flowing southward. West Coast manages all the rivers from the Alps going over. Then you've got the Ashburton area, which pulls in all the rivers from, Mount, I think it's called Mount Ashburton, but all the mountains up there. And then you've got Canterbury doing from Selwyn north. Basically, the whole point of mentioning this being Ngāi Tahu seems to have come out with a reasonably sensible idea in terms of, I'm not going to get into the co-governance stuff that they may or may not have put in there, but just having 5 big councils managing the waterways and a bunch of little ones. It's kind of what we've already done, but their whole point being even smaller local councils to where you're actually represented. So Dunedin City being one council with maybe Mosgiel as far out, but not ruling over farmlands that are just totally ignored by them. Like you go to Middlemarch, you feel sorry for them because why should they be represented by someone who's never stepped foot on a farm in their life? Or someone who's never been to New Zealand for even a year yet. Maybe he's been in for a year. Shout out Benedict Ong, who did actually go to Middlemarch on his campaign trail. I'll give him that. I don't know if he talked to anyone, but he did. That's a reasonable seeming idea, but just worth mentioning that this is still going on, and we'll see where the government lands. It's getting close to election season. I don't know. I think
80 days out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be.
Getting there.
They're making it quite a big election issue. What they're going to do with local councils. And I don't. The left has been quite quiet on it, and I think they want to see what National does, see what the reaction does, and then be populist with what the reaction.
They want
is.
to try and get this through before the election, I think.
I think so, but
they
Labour's not said what they want done. Greens have not said what they want done. Really, they haven't come out with policies. So I think the National's going to bring in their proposal, which will be. It's seeming like it'll be larger amalgamated councils. So Westland will be one council. I'm looking at a map of New Zealand that's got the districts on it. Nelson, Tasman, probably Marlborough will be one council. Like amalgamate a lot of the big areas.
Yeah.
It would look like Auckland basically everywhere, the council structure.
Super cities.
Which, I mean, Auckland has done well for asset management purposes and integrating the city into one, but I think the problems I have with Auckland is how disconnected everyone is. No one knows the local board. The local board's pretty local, but I mean, that's potentially a cultural issue with Auckland, but I think you should elect the mayor, in my opinion, with Auckland. You should elect just the mayor and then your local councillors, and whoever gets the most votes, the two from the local board who get the most votes go onto the main council. Maybe that's how it works. I don't even know. I've never voted in Auckland, only Dunedin. But yeah, community-centric, but asset managed widely seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Any concluding statements from this week, Harrison?
No, we talked a lot.
We've talked a lot. This is going to be a
long episode.
Because I've been ranting. I've been ranting. What is there to look forward to? End on a positive note.
What is there to look forward to?
If you go to university, breaks are coming up.
Yeah, we got one more week and we got a break, which would be lovely.
If you
got a few interviews lining up actually for us as well.
Yes,
stay tuned for that.
We've coming up.
We've got a few more coming through.
If you're a human being who lives in New Zealand, we are coming out of winter slowly.
It's getting there. It's getting a bit warmer.
There.
Yesterday was quite nice. Today's not too bad.
I don't mean to be hoary, but my with the WH slutty, but my knees are out today because the sun was shining.
I made him put his dogs away.
You made me put socks on, yeah, because you were scared that I'd put my foot on camera, and
no one needs to see that.
He's got a foot fetish, and he didn't want to be distracted.
Thank you. And on that lovely note, we will see you next week.
Bye.